my reading, I thought I'd do something a little different. Like a Netflix series, I'll give you a recap of The Paper Route, and then I'll read the first chapter of its sequel, which I expect to publish at the end of this year. I hope you will enjoy both. First, the recap. The Paper Route is a murder mystery wrapped in a family saga. It moves from mid-century Milltown Lowell, Massachusetts, to Beat Generation Greenwich Village, New York. The protagonist, Jackie, is the middle child of a Franco-American family of quirky and tragic characters. Due to her mother's terminal illness, Jackie is caretaker of her baby brother and simple, strongman uncle. She's also a paper girl. Perhaps as a diversion from her weighty responsibilities, when her baby brother sleeps, she delights in stalking an unusual-looking stranger in the middle of the night. Part mystic, part truant, Jackie can tell good people from bad at a glance. She knows this odd stranger is a good soul. However, one day, the stranger's arrest for murder is reported on the front page of her newspaper. Compelled to undo this injustice, she seeks out and shares her insights with the childless and charmed lead detective, Dennis Dom. In the course of her daily delivery of the newspaper, Jackie collects information relevant to the murder investigation. Together, she and the detective exonerate the wrongly accused suspect. Later, Jackie and her mentor solve a cold case in which her beloved great aunt Blanche had been involved. However, closing that case triggers another, this time involving the detective's brother-in-law, Jack Kerouac. I'd like to take this time to explain some of the props that we have with us today. This hand signifies Aunt Blanche's readings of Jackie's palm, in which she states that the scar across it indicates that Jackie changed her fate. The ring is the missing heirloom dragon ring stolen from the original victim. Find it, and the victim's widow says, and you'll find the murderer. Visions of Gerard is a book that Jack Kerouac wrote about his older brother who was a sickly child. He died when he was 9 and Jack was 5. When Gerard passed away, sisters from St. Louis de France School, my alma mater, gathered around his bedside hoping to hear divinely inspired last words. In my book, Detective Dom's childless wife, Caroline, prayed to her brother Gerard and to Saint Gerard, who happens to be the mother saint. Next, I'd like to give you a sneak peek of chapter 1 of the sequel to The Paper Route, which I'm currently writing under the working title, Where Is She? Like The Paper Route, each chapter starts with a relevant and revelatory quote. This one is from Sun Tzu. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the results of 100 battles. Racing back from New York's 6th Precinct to his brother-in-law Jack Kerouac's Soho brownstone, Detective Dom is furious and fearful. No one back at the house knows where Jackie is. His greatest fear is that she reverted to her old habits and decided to roam the streets alone and in the dark of night. But Soho isn't Lowell. That's it, he thinks. Soho isn't Lowell. Minette's is open until 2 a.m. or later. Maybe she went back there. Maybe someone saw her. That thought at once comforts and chills him. After all, the last time we were at Minette's, Jackie recognized Lowell ex-con Leo Boulevard washing dishes there. Determined not to succumb to angst-inspired assumptions, Dom parks his Ford Fairlane beneath Minette's neon sign, which he hopes and fears may have been a beacon to Jackie. After trying the unyielding brass handle, Dom desperately drums on the glass-paneled door and then walks around to the side windows. Closed, dark wood blinds guard the view. The place is locked up tighter as a duck's butt, Dom thinks, getting back behind the wheel of his car and gunning it back to his brother-in-law Jack's place. Meanwhile, back at the brownstone, I open my eyes and ask myself how I ever fell asleep out here. I roll away from the levered bathroom window that had closed behind me. Gravel, loosed by the sun, had transferred itself from the brownstone's flat, hot tar roof onto my arm. Sitting up, I rubbed the pebbles out of my creviced skin and the sun out of my squinty eyes, which lids had miraculously managed to shut against the awful night. Like acid reflux, the taste of fear and loathing fills my mouth. Lifting my head cautiously, I peek over the parapet at the adjacent building. The only thing separating it from Uncle Jack's house is a sulfurous-smelling, ethereal moat. Quickly turning away, I retreat to the conjured image of Our Lady of Grace, with the serpent firmly subdued under her foot. Calmed, I knock on the onion-gilded window until my knuckles weep. Pausing to look through the window glass into the bathroom below, I see the marble bathroom sink, which the night before had provided the elevation I needed to propel myself blindly into this ongoing nightmare. Scratching my head, I whisper, I'm in trouble now. Having just returned to the brownstone, Detective Dom joins his wife Caroline, their adopted son Stephen, and the Kerouacs 2 floors down and out of hearing range of my SOS. I thought she was with you, Caroline says to her husband. Shaking his head, he responds, when did you see her last? When we said goodnight. Turning to Stephen, the detective asks, how about you? Shrugging, Stephen says, I don't know, I was sleeping. Jack and I had a nightcap in the study before bed, Joan says. We didn't hear a thing. After we got the call from Bill this morning, you practically ran out the door, Dennis. Wait, wasn't the door locked? Yes, it was, and I couldn't open it. I had to ask Jack for the key, replies Dennis. Nodding, Jack says, it's a New York barrel lock. You can't open it without the key, and I keep it in the drawer of my bedside table. Racing up the stairs, Dennis says, that means Jackie is still somewhere in this house. I'll check upstairs, and you check down here. Hearing my name bounce off the walls of the cavernous top floor, I resume pounding on the window. I'm here, I'm here. Detective Dom bursts into the bathroom, looks up and sees me. I back away from the window so he can crank it open, then I hurry through feet first. The detective breaks my fall to the floor. Were you out there all night, he asks. I didn't mean to be. You're shaking, he says. It's okay. You're okay now. What were you doing out there anyway? Well, when we first got here, I looked out the master bedroom window and saw a beautiful rooftop quilt, and I couldn't wait to see it under the stars. So as soon as everyone was asleep, I snuck out for just a quick look, but the window shut behind me, locking me out. Coming to an abrupt halt under the bathroom transom, Stephen looks in and says, you were on the roof? Cool. Not cool, counters Caroline, reaching the stops of the staircase. You gave us a fright. Well, all's well that ends well, says Joan right behind her. From mid-staircase, and speaking as though he were the final arbiter, Jack says, trite words applied to a singular child. Looking from him to Caroline, Joan says, see what I put up with? Shrugging, Caroline says to Jackie, thank God you're okay. You are okay, right? Yes, I'm fine, I say while my mind is screaming, no, I'm not, definitely not. I need to speak to the detective in private. I have to tell him what I saw, even though I'm not exactly sure what I saw. But I sure know what I felt. The detective says, we have news for you. Mr. Libby's murderer will finally be brought to justice. Last night, Larry confessed to killing him. Really? How did you get him to confess? I ask. I didn't. You did. Huh? You activated his guilt. The detective didn't tell me that Larry killed Paul too. Later, Stephen did. Detective Dom needn't have worried. Finding out that one of the people I had just had dinner with was murdered by another was nothing compared to the lonesome horror I experienced last night. Hugging me awkwardly, Caroline says, take a nice shower, then come down to the kitchen. I'll make us all French toast, and then we'll be off to see Lady Liberty in the Empire State Building. What makes the toast French? Stephen asks. Chef Caroline Kerouac Dom, Jack answers. My mother will be happy to take any questions you might have back at our table when we're finished with the readings tonight. And now I would like to introduce Mr. Carlos Zamorano.